Donald Trump faces a new series of controversies, one of them about birth control. In an exclusive conversation, he told CBS Pittsburgh that he may consider restricting access to it if reelected. Take a listen.
So related to this is the whole issue of contraceptives. Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting. And it's another issue that's very interesting. But you will find it, I think, very smart. I think it's a smart decision. But we'll be releasing it very soon.
Well, that suggests that you may want to support some restrictions, like the morning after pill or something.
We are also, things really do have a lot to do with the states. And some states are going to have different policies than others. But I'm coming out within a week or so.
A short time later, former President Trump walked back what he just said there, that he never, will never, and has never advocated for restricting birth control or contraception. We're looking at
that. So for those still performing a balancing act on the fence between someone who's overseen one of the greatest economic recoveries in modern American history and his predecessor whose woeful mismanagement forced the need for economic resuscitation, who's also currently facing prosecution on one of his laundry list of felonies, now endorsing a, quote, unified Reich. Yes, he may have since deleted it, but when the fascist fits, well, I have something to show you, right? Something that may, I don't know, tip the scales if you're still on that fence. Well, during a local news interview, here's that same candidate seemingly supporting bans on contraception, including the morning after pill. But yeah, I'm sure the New York Times will have a very compelling both sides argument.
I was trying to wrap my head around that because he said that thing Donald Trump often says, which is we're looking at that. Sometimes we're looking at that very strongly. What is that little tap dance he does? What do you make of him walking back so quickly? And what's the Biden camp doing now to respond?
It's a pretty decent impersonation there, Tony, of former President Trump. It's not surprising to see Trump walk back those comments. When I talk to top Republican strategists, they say any kind of Republican statement on contraception is a political loser. Don't be talking about it. But my Democratic sources close to President Biden are saying not so fast. They're going to point to these comments despite the walk back and say if Trump wins, if Republicans take control of Congress, they could take steps, not only on contraception, but on abortion rights. And as we saw in 2022, Democrats really believe reproductive rights a way to stoke turnout for their party this time around.
With news breaking today that Louisiana Republicans just passed a bill to criminalize possession of abortion medication, reclassifying it as, quote, controlled dangerous substances. A bill that, well, hundreds of doctors have opposed, but, Republicans just don't care and are moving forward anyway.
The battle over reproductive rights, a key issue in the 2024 race, is escalating. In a first-of-its-kind move, lawmakers in Louisiana have now passed a bill to reclassify two commonly used drugs in abortions as controlled dangerous substances. NBC's senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson is following this one for us. Hallie, good morning.
Hey there, Craig. Good morning to you. This is a controversial plan that hundreds of Louisiana doctors say they oppose. If the governor does ultimately sign this bill into law, and he's expected to, Louisiana would be the first state in the country to criminalize these abortion drugs in this way. But critics fear it may not be the last. A new front line this morning in the battle over abortion access.
And the bill is finally passed.
Louisiana lawmakers moving forward with a plan to put two abortion drugs in the same category as so-called controlled dangerous substances like depressants and stimulants, criminalizing the possession of mifepristone and misoprostol used to induce abortions for anyone without a prescription.
Well, it's with this I wanted to circle back to this train wreck of a live interview. While on CBS Pittsburgh, the former president, amidst lying and spreading more disinformation regarding the safety and security of mail-in ballots, was lobbed a softball question on contraception.
Man, this would have to be frightening that a guy doesn't even know what America's policy is on contraceptives or saying that he's going to be thinking about changing it in the next couple of weeks. Let's bring in right now NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale. Ali, this is exactly what Democrats, what women's groups, what women, what their loved ones have feared for quite some time. It started with abortion, and then, as Clarence Thomas said, they would go after the right to have contraceptives, access to contraceptives next.
Yeah, that the way that they wrote the Dobbs decision was going to open the door to other fashions of controlling how women can have their own say over their own reproductive health care. I mean, I think what's striking about both the instance that you brought up back in 2016 with Chris Matthews, I remember being in that green room and being with the campaign staff, and they didn't seem aware of the fact that he had just made a major misstep outside of the lines of regular Republican policy. I think that's, again, what we're seeing here on contraception is a candidate who doesn't exactly know what lines he's supposed to color within in terms of where the party policy is. That's problematic on a lot of fronts, but it's especially problematic when you color outside the lines in an issue where the party is already out of step with where the public needs it to be. And then he's just kind of teasing this as something that doesn't have real life ramifications when it very much does.
It very much does.
Now, this is indicative of his bipolar approach to any discussion on abortion. You know, when you find him on stage at his rallies, he's celebrating overturning Roe like it was his Obamacare.
We did something that everybody wanted. Everybody said also it couldn't be done. We got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Only to perform next level deflection tactics when asked if he supports the medieval repercussions as a result. But what is clear is Trump continues to go down this local news circuit, hoping he's given free rein to spew his usual diatribe. But if you watch closely, you can see him get visibly irritated when many of those local news anchors push back. Some even opting to throw in visual aids as evidence.
I think at one point you vowed never to come back to Minnesota after you lost the state in 2020. Is this a signal that you think you have a realistic chance to win the state of Minnesota in 2024?
Well, I never said I'd never come back. I never even thought of that. I thought I won in 2020 easily.
He actually did say it at a rally in Duluth in September of 2020 and appeared to be joking.
I lose Minnesota. I'm never coming back. I don't care. I'm never coming back.
Trump lost Minnesota by 7 points in 2020.
Step by step, you're losing it.
But, Mr. President, your thoughts on the unionization that's happening down south, the interest that we're seeing in Tennessee with Volkswagen workers, it seems like it's catching on. It's not just a Detroit thing.
Well, it could be happening. I mean, it's going to be happening, but you got to be very careful about what's going to happen in 2 years from now when China wants to take all of the jobs. Because, frankly, then union or non-union, everybody's going to be hurt.
Just a little bit of some information, some fact-checking. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, our state, Michigan, actually gained 24,000 manufacturing jobs between January of 2021 and May of last year. That's actually tied for 7th in the country. And so this notion that the auto industry in Detroit is falling apart and that we need Mr. Trump's help may not be as on point as he would like or some of his supporters would like.
Oh, that's gonna hurt. One stat before we go. Venezuela was very crime-ridden. They announced the other day 72% reduction in crime in the last year. You know why? They moved all their criminals from Venezuela right into the good old USA.
But, sir, where are those numbers coming from?
I guess I get them from the papers.
And the thing is, this is how everyone should be covering him, by offering real-time fact checks to every single lie he tries to force feed viewers. And oftentimes gets away with it because maybe a host got complacent. Because yeah, I can imagine it is tiring to fact check a dude whose lie to felony ratio is on par, but it still needs to be done. I mean, take a leaf out of Stephanie Rule's book.
Outside looks like it's supposed to be 4,000. There are more police than I've ever seen anywhere because they don't want to have anybody come down. There's not a civilian within 3 blocks of the courthouse.
Okay, for fact's sake, we were there. You can see plenty of people milling about. That is directly across the street from the courthouse. People are sitting there eating their lunch. There are barricades up. The press is there, reporting the news. There are orderly lines with people waiting to go into the courthouse. And then there's a wide open park right there where protesters, anti-protesters, anyone in the world can show up and speak their piece. And there was a handful of people there.
Yeah, and in the morning when we were lining up, it actually became a bit of a fight between two single protesters who were trying to carve out their own territory. There was
two individuals.
And then one was singing, and then the other one had a big sign about Todd Blanche and, whether they would call Trump to testify. And then these two people were having a fight amongst themselves over who should have more territory in the park to protest. But it's a big park. And the idea that, people cannot come out and protest for him is nonsense. And part of the reason Trump is saying that, kind of according to our reporting, people inside his orbit, is because Trump is personally offended that his supporters have not come to New York to protest him. And as a result, this is why he is projecting.
Okay, the crowds aren't the only thing he's misrepresenting. It's things that are more dangerous than that. Because Trump and his surrogates keep saying that Donald Trump wants to testify, but they won't let him. Donald Trump doesn't listen to his attorneys. These are people that he pays. And the court isn't preventing him from testifying.
Because here's the thing, what happened in Alabama is just the start if November goes Republicans' way. He's already promised. I mean, listen to what he said at a recent rally. He wants to implement more extreme, younger justices if he's given the opportunity to get back in office. And if those words alone don't scare you, the real life nightmare we're living in as a result of us not taking him serious in the past, well, that should.